Hi friends, welcome to the NPTEL course Strategy and Technology, a practical primer. We are in week 10 with the theme of technology and customer centricity. In this lecture, the 49th in the series, we have the topic of technology and public policy to discuss. Japan, the world's technologically most advanced nation, was buffeted by low growth and deflation for nearly 3 decades. This lecture demonstrates how Japan's public policy, that is, the governmental policy, served the interests of industries and society together. Japan is a fascinating and inspiring role model in the world of technological innovation. Japan had decades of sluggish economy, yet the country retained global preeminence in technology. Public policy in Japan over the decades, through METI and now METI, emphasized relentless technological innovation in firms and industries, making technology Japan's national comparative advantage. This is not to say that the industries and the firms didn't strive to be technologically innovative. They were. But the public policy in Japan was very unique and accelerated and deepened this process. Prime Minister Shinzo Abe-san's 3 arrows, referred to as Abenomics, emphasize monetary easing, high technology infrastructure, and industrial restructuring through techno-economic factors. India's public policy and corporate strategy must emphasize technology as the core of Prime Minister Narendra Modi's Make in India, Atmanirbhar initiative. Technology can indeed drive sustainable development. Public policy can open up industrial development in the normal course. However, under certain special circumstances, it can also induce major transformations in industries. These transformations are facilitated for benefiting the customers. Let's look at science and technology in Japan. Japan became the world's technologically most advanced nation, rising from the ravages of the World War, and despite the lack of natural resources. However, from the 1970s, Japan had been buffeted by low growth and deflation. During the period, the country had seen threefold appreciation of its currency, yen vis-a-vis US dollar, rendering its products extremely pricey in overseas markets. The country had seen a huge real estate bubble that destroyed consumer and corporate wealth. Some of the high-cost big-ticket overseas acquisitions had affected the overall health of certain major conglomerates. Sony's acquisition of movie houses in America is an example. The nation had aged significantly, potentially reducing domestic savings and consumption and increasing welfare expenditure. The political system had faced continuous upheavals, and the legislative processes had faced fractured verdicts during the period, and this had a consequent impact on developmental economics. The manufacturing industry had been facing onslaughts from the nimbler Korean industry and was burdened with excess capacity. Globalization of Japanese industry could not take place to the extent possible because of the more cost competitive Korean industry. Yet, Japan remains as the top-ranked nation in terms of scientific and technological innovation and quality of life. Some of the causes for this in terms of the R&D expenditure as percentage of GDP and per capita R&D expenditure have been pointed out by me in an earlier lecture on patents. Concerted and dedicated efforts by academic, industrial, and public institutions, coupled with a positive national culture, helped Japan retain its preeminent position as a global industry leader. At the core of this resilience lies technology, without doubt. Japanese products, including automobiles and electronics, continue to dominate global markets and customer mindshare, notwithstanding this steep yen appreciation. Japan continued to create new architectural marvels, although on a muted scale, despite the real estate slump. The Japanese industry continued to develop state-of-the-art products, several of them helpful to the aged population. Some of the most sophisticated diagnostic equipment and surgical equipment are made by Japanese companies. The overseas expansion managed to weather the acquisition turmoil and deliver value. The political system remained durable enough to welcome a recharged Prime Minister Shinzo Abe-san and his strategy of Abenomics. This is evident when we consider the unfolding of new technologies in Japan for the future decades. Also, we notice that at the core has been a public policy that has always been supportive of industry and technology. Japan has been unstoppable in technology. Japan's technological advancements have been varied over time. Nothing captured global public acclaim as the famed Japanese Shinkansen bullet train that represented a unique combination of technological innovation and operational perfection. There are two major cities in Japan, Tokyo and Osaka. Prior to 1964 Tokyo Olympics, Japan started operating the Shinkansen bullet train between Tokyo and Osaka, and that train completed the travel distance of 500 kilometers in just 4 hours, unthinkable at that point of time. Since then, Shinkansen has reduced the travel time to 2.5 hours through continuous improvement. As Tokyo prepared to host the 2020 Olympics, Japan showcased the world's fastest train called SC Maglev, superconducting magnetic levitation. This super bullet train, a hover train that can run at more than 500 kilometers per hour, drastically cut the travel time between Tokyo and Osaka, just 6-7 minutes. Japan has been famous for its robotic technologies from the 1930s. Robot Lilliput was the first toy mechanical robot developed in 1932 in Japan. Since then, companies such as Fanuc and Kawasaki and a few others brought robotics to industrial manufacturing. Sony and Honda brought humanoids to mimic human movements for day-to-day life. In 2013, Kirobo was developed as a humanoid robot that can accompany space astronauts. By 2020, robots that care for elders became commercially available. Japan's strides are not limited only to high-technology industrial products. Japan also innovated some of the world's foremost pharmaceutical products in multiple therapeutic classes. Visible and invisible technology strides characterize Japanese technological mission. Applied technology in a delicate manner to human life is not strange at all to Japan. A Japanese rice maker has developed a rice polishing machine that removes the hard-to-digest bran but retains the delicate, nutrition-rich suboron layer, which is just 1/100th of a millimeter thick. Self-driving cars and zero-emission cars are the new challenge as well as opportunity for the Japanese automobile industry. It has already mastered the energy-efficient hybrid car technology for mass production. Toyota and Nissan have pledged to develop self-driving cars for mass production, apart from a mix of hybrid electric fuel cell hydrogen cars. Japan is likely to be a leader in retaining the IC engine format, but using the zero-emission hydrogen fuel. While the Western firms dominate the global pharmaceutical industry, it is less known that some of the most potent and differentiated drugs in antibiotic, cardiac, diabetic, and gastrocare therapies were innovated in Japan. The same drive is also evident in the research to use adult stem cells to do the job of embryonic stem cells. These have been deployed to develop regenerative medicine that is free of controversies of embryonic stem cells and is more universally available. These stem cells are called iPSCs, induced pluripotent stem cells. The amazing list of future technologies that are under development in Japan, certainly not limited to the above, is indicative of the unending quest of Japan for scientific and technological supremacy. Meteoric Japan. What makes Japan tick with technological vision, investment commitment, and execution commitment, despite undergoing decades of economic deflation and political uncertainty? Forward-looking government policies are often considered the facilitators of Japanese miracle. METI is now renamed as METI, Ministry of Economy, Trade and Industry. In the post-war Japan, the famed Japanese Ministry of International Trade and Industry, METI, now rechristened as Ministry of Economy, Trade and Industry, METI, in 2001, was the facilitator of Japan's unique industrial and export competitiveness. Decades of non-growth and industrial losses have not led to any reduction of METI's relevance. The other also lies in the homogeneity of the Japanese society on one hand, and the national acceptance of technology as the primary tool to improve quality of life on the other. Without the twin features of aligned public policy and private initiative, it would have been impossible for a nation of the small scale of Japan to invest as much as USD 90 billion on SC maglev super bullet trains with a 10-year investment horizon and an even longer and uncertain payback horizon. The social resolve to convert a challenge into an opportunity, for example, development of robots to take care of an aging population layer, also stems from belief that technology would support rather than erode old world values. The other feature of Japan is that the country has always shown wisdom and boldness to experiment with new technologies and open new markets for new products first at home. This progressive approach has enabled Japan to master the new technologies prior to launching them with due customization abroad for global dominance. In several cases, the presence of several strong competitors for the domestic market also helped the Japanese makers to master the art of technological parity with cost competitiveness. The differences that exist between the large firm and the small firm in terms of technological competitiveness and cost efficiency are not much. They are just marginal, which is unique relative to other nations. In other nations, the large companies tend to have greater capability of technological innovation, and the small companies are those which follow the larger company. But here in Japan, we do not have that impact of scale economics and resource accessibility. Intellectual innovation is commonplace across the companies irrespective of the size and scale. This means that in Japan, once a technology is discovered or applied, it becomes a national comparative advantage in the country. The quest to experiment with new technologies makes for Japan's high-tech toilets with a wide range of sensors and wash and dry mechanisms. Toto has been a leader and pioneer in this segment. At present, these are somewhat a Japanese oddity, yet these can open up new vistas in healthcare and sanitation in a manner typically reflective of Japan, address and resolve problems of health at source. Abenomics, the three arrows. Positive governmental policies helped technological innovation and industrial growth in Japan. Shinzo Abe, Japan's longest serving Prime Minister 2006 to 2007 and 2012 to 2020, is credited with a comprehensive public policy. Japan, as I said, was roiled for decades by economic and political uncertainties. It looked as though Japan lost its confidence. However, a new hope in the new Abenomics came through. This strategy framework of economy refers to the new set of economic policy framework set in motion by Prime Minister upon assumption of office in December 2012. Abenomics comprises, in his words, three arrows of massive monetary easing, expansionary fiscal policy, and long-term growth strategy. Please also remember that this Abenomics framework corresponds in a manner to the five economic forces theory that I talked about. Economic forces are larger and more impactful than the industrial forces. Industry takes its cues and its inspiration from the economic development framework. The miracle with Japan is that despite the fractured electoral verdicts, confused government policies on a number of other fronts, and stagnant growth, Japanese technology continued to prosper nationally and internationally. What are the three arrows of Abenomics? The first and second arrows aim to transform Japanese actual growth path, while the third operates on the economy's potential growth path, that is, a multi-horizon strategy. This assumes the optimal use of all available resources and technologies. The first arrow, investments in high technology infrastructure. With stock markets soaring, yen depreciating, unemployment falling, real GDP growth increasing, and job to applicant ratio nearing 1, the first arrow decisively worked almost immediately. The second arrow of sharp increase in fiscal expenditure for newer high technology infrastructure projects takes longer to work, but the projects of solar power and high speed transportation are signals that the second arrow also started working. The first arrow was investments in high technology infrastructure. The second was intrinsic technological innovation. Both are highly technology related. The third arrow is the arrow of fiscal expansion. This aims to boost Japan's potential growth through structural change in industry and business through techno-economic factors, and this has become now far more important. Despite the unsettled conditions caused by COVID-19 globally as well as in Japan, the government continued to address the issues of economic growth, social protection, and industrial development through effective public policy. It has also been the cultural driver. Abe-san set out the vision behind his long-term growth plan. Japan is a country that challenges, that is open, and that innovates, he said. This vision resonates with the traditional culture and modern ethos of Japan. Apart from the new technologies discussed earlier, other frontier technologies such as metamaterial technologies, carbon capture technologies, magnetoresistive random access memory, ultra-compact microwave communication systems, smart appliances, personal mobility vehicles, thorium and hydrogen technologies for nuclear power, 3D printer technologies, and several other new wave technologies are indicative of the potential that could lie ahead. The third aspect of his policy includes increased private investment, technological innovation, improved trade links, and reformed corporate tax policy. Abe-san's economic framework enhanced the pull factor from the infrastructure investments, accelerated the intrinsic technological movement, enhanced the industrial and technological collaboration between competing firms, and made available investable resources that the private sector is enabled to develop. Abenomics faces the toughest challenges in ensuring that the technology-led long-term growth strategy is successful and sustainable. The biggest strength of Japan lies in the intertwining of technology and public policy for national good. India has a lot to learn from the progress of many advanced nations, not the least from Japan, in terms of the correlation between technology and economy. Prime Minister Narendra Modi and the Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe-san collaborated on a number of projects. Japan has instructive lessons of positioning technology at the intersection of public policy and private initiative. Whether it is the effort of METI and METI up to the recent times or the Abenomics in the contemporary times, public policy and private initiatives emphasize technology, both as an outcome and as a catalyst. Japan has been able to focus its top engineering and scientific talent on leading-edge technology in Japan, while regionalizing manufacturing around the world, utilizing scientific and technological resources abroad. As a late entrant to the world's superpower game, India, now expected to be the third largest economic power in the world by 2030, has the benefit of absorbing the good points of several advanced nations. China, Taiwan, Malaysia, Thailand, and Indonesia have been great beneficiaries of Japan's optimized global technology model. India, with scientific and technological manpower and competencies far greater than those of the nations in citation except China, ought to have been in the vanguard of this optimization model. But taking the necessary cues from Japan as to how public policy could spur technological innovation, India could take great strides in the future. India was a regulated economy, that too highly regulated, till the 1990s. Liberalization of the economy from the 1990s was highly effective as a macroeconomic policy stimulant that helped India's globalization and competitiveness. Technology played a pivotal role in growth of the nation from the 1990s. As much as macroeconomic policy, we need technological competitiveness and cost efficiencies. These will enhance industrial growth. These will also support export penetration and domestic capital formation, while decreasing external debt dependence, inflationary pressures, and budget deficits. Macro and microeconomic policies in India should continue to align private initiatives and public policy to position India as the leading absorber and developer of global technologies and deliverer of products for the globe. Narendra Modi ji's Make in India initiative and the more recent invitations for semiconductor majors from across the world to invest in India are reflective of that passion. Creation of a manufacturing base in India for the world is seen in some industrial sector, but with the kind of initiatives that are being taken, we will have a new on-ground execution strategy. The Atmanirbhar policy and the various measures of production stimulus are the right policy moves. Every new electronic device and most components of industrial equipment of the world, whether from Japan or USA, are manufactured in China from day one in each case. There is no reason at all why India cannot be a similar first choice for global manufacturers. In the aftermath of COVID, many countries have announced their own China plus one policies. This provides a great opportunity for India because we have institutional support in India, educated manpower, a strong judicial system, English-speaking population, and a passion for growth, and above all, democracy practicing openness. India must therefore work towards its goals of being the number 3 economy as soon as possible, being the world's preferred destination for the global powers in industry, and in the process also reduce its own dependence on China, for example in terms of pharmaceuticals. India needs public policy and private initiatives that make such concurrent technology transfer to and product manufacturing in India possible. This requires encouragement of massive infrastructural investments far beyond export-oriented units and special economic zone. Even more impactful could be creation of industrial cities with transportation and social infrastructure across the country and provision of clear policy regime for wholly owned and partially owned subsidiaries of technology giants. These policies should distinguish between foreign companies which transfer aged products and companies which transfer the latest generation products, policies obviously favoring the latter. The criteria for evaluation should include not only investment flows but the quantity and quality of technology inflows. Another important criterion would be the willingness of the global majors to make India an integral part of their global supply chain. From the day when India can claim for itself, the words Abe spoke of Japan as a country that challenges itself, that is open and that innovates, the future of India shall become and remain globally successful and perpetually sustainable. Prime Minister Narendra Modi's Make in India initiative, I believe, will achieve this and more. For India to succeed in this endeavor to the full potential, the emphasis must be on technology as the driver of sustainability and development, as was the case and as is the case still with Japan. In the earlier part of the lecture, we have considered how public policy in Japan supports industrial and economic development vigorously and with a futuristic view. We also considered certain examples for that. In this part of the lecture, let's focus in detail on METI, Japan. METI stands for Ministry of Economy, Trade and Industry. This organization was created by the Japanese Parliament. There were 3 objectives. 1. Develop Japan's economy and industry by focusing on promoting economic vitality in private companies. 2. Smoothly advance external economic relationships. 3. Secure, stable and efficient supply of energy and mineral resources. Whatever METI does is for the future and also for the technological innovation. Japanese aviation, as an example, is retooling to carbon neutrality push with the support from METI. In order to develop the next generation aircraft, the Japanese government has planned to provide solid support to the aircraft industry. The support has 2 purposes. 1. To help parts manufacturers stay in the business, and 2. To support their future growth. As with several other industrial sectors in Japan, aviation-related industry is also constituted by small and medium-sized parts manufacturers. METI is helping them to globalize and to support the recovery in aircraft demand that would happen over the next 20 years. Japanese already have their strong presence in the materials field, especially for their carbon fiber reinforced plastics. In addition, the technologies Japanese companies have developed, including automotive batteries and motors, and the technology for land-based hydrogen gas turbines, are attracting attention from overseas aircraft OEMs. Yoshihide Suga-san, the Prime Minister of Japan, has announced a plan to establish a 2 trillion yen Green Innovation Fund under the New Energy and Industrial Technology Development Organization, also called NEDO, to help achieve carbon neutrality. So, Japanese government is not concerned about the current state of the airline industry or the aviation industry. It is focused on a scenario that is going to unveil 2 decades hence and combining it with the technological progressiveness of achieving net carbon neutrality. This is one example. Another example is on the future of transportation. In anticipation of a future where autonomous driving can contribute to traffic safety, demonstration experiments featuring autonomous driving are being combined with mass mobility as a service, and these are being conducted across Japan. There are 3 aspects to this. 1. Connecting bus and taxi. 2. Responding to needs. And 3. Serving as living infrastructure. METI as an organization is participating in development of public life and also systemic changes in certain aspects of transportation. A demonstration experiment by the Tokyo Metropolitan Government that had self-driving taxi coordinating with an airport limousine bus has begun already in Tokyo. This is to enable smooth access to the city center for inbound travelers, facilitating easier transmission from the buses to taxis through smartphone apps. MaaS is about to transform not only transportation but also the mobility of goods. One such example is unmanned shipping service of items sold at convenience stores using delivery robots. People who order the items require a QR code on their smartphones. Scanning the code using the robot's camera, they unlock the locker and collect the items. Third one is the robot taxi. That is going to be the main product that is to be created out of combining autonomous driving with MaaS. Easy ride tests have already been conducted by Nissan Motor Corporation and Denako, where passengers from general public rode an autonomous driving car developed from a Nissan electric vehicle. They were able to get off at one of their preferred destinations. METI is also supporting an expansion strategy in the age of Internet of Things for ultra-precision processing. Machine tool manufacturer Roku Sangyo has developed Japan's first ever vertical standing machining center. There are 4 aspects to this. The IoT technology, which enables constant monitoring and an analysis function using AI, which enables abnormality detection and preventive maintenance, has become the driving force of the thrust of the company into the niche top position. Machine tool is no longer about just machining. It is about integrating artificial intelligence for superior performance. Roku's microfine machining centers support production in various industries in Japan and abroad. These machines allow operators to always monitor the environment of their location and situation of operation. Up to 36 sensors are installed in a single machine. Data from the sensors is provided to users and Roku through the company's original internet platform on a cloud service. These machines keep collecting and accumulating a wide range of information about the machine, including temperature of the room and the output status of the motor, and they can detect slight changes or signs of abnormality. That is the fineness of the sensors involved. That is, the machine tool is in constant interaction not only with the part that is going to be machined, but also with the ambient environment as well as the ambient physical rooms. Making of iron and steel using hydrogen is going to take Japan to net neutrality. Blast furnaces, which are used in the upstream of the steel making process, use coke, which is made by heating coal in the absence of air to eliminate the oxygen contained in iron ore. Carbon dioxide is discharged in the chemical reaction, but by substituting hydrogen for coke, water is created instead of carbon dioxide. This technology, called hydrogen reduction, is regarded as a promising weapon for combating global warming. In Japan, the first modern blast furnace was created in the era Ansi, 1854 to 1860. Nearly 200 years later, an age of steel made using hydrogen and zero carbon steel is now expected to arrive in Japan. Nippon Steel is spearheading this with the support of METI. The Nippon Steel's test blast furnace is one of the largest of its kind in the world. It gradually raised precision through combination of experiments and simulation models, adjusting how much and from where hydrogen-based gas is injected into the blast furnace and exploring ways to control reduction reaction which changes over time. After much trial and error, they were able to successfully reduce carbon dioxide by 10%. The project aims to complete the first commercial unit by around 2030, assuming by then the infrastructure for storing carbon dioxide will be ready and it makes economic sense to use it. So a project which is as far as 10 years away is being conceptualized and executed with the support of the government, so that the Japanese environment will be contributing to the overall net neutrality requirement. Japan is also trying to move beyond zero. Ammonia is attracting significant interest as a zero emission fuel. These types of fuels, hydrogen included, don't emit carbon dioxide when burnt, and therefore they are being given high priority in Japan's strategy for carbon neutrality. There is a campaign that is going on in Tokyo, Beyond Zero Week, for example, where all energy sources, technologies and pathways to decarbonize are being explored. METI has allocated a fund of 70 billion yen on developing technologies that will enable the stable supply of ammonia power. The goal is to perfect such a technology by 2030 and to begin operating ammonia power plants by the 2040s. In order to achieve carbon neutrality around the world, METI also has come up with the Beyond Zero concept. There were a series of conferences that were held in Japan to show to the world Japan's expertise and efforts to tackle global warming. Another interesting environment-related futuristic action is the Clean Ocean Material Alliance. It is called CLOMA. CLOMA has advanced efforts to match companies in industries including logistics, food and consumer goods that are interested in new technologies for overcoming the plastic waste. There are 5 activity areas covered by CLOMA: reducing the amount of plastic used, improving material recycling rates, developing and introducing chemical recycling technologies, developing and using biodegradable plastics, and developing and using paper and cellulose materials. From time to time, public policy in India wants to ban plastics. Apart from that, we need to supplement such efforts with alliances, with initiatives that will ensure technological development for minimization of the use of plastics, or if plastics have to be used, they are recovered and reused in a very productive and environment friendly way. Through this unique perspective, CLOMA is combining technological developments in recycling with establishing a supporting waste collection and sorting system. This is an approach that represents CLOMA's efforts to facilitate cross-industry collaboration as well. There are of course technological issues, but CLOMA has been able to develop a pathway to boost the recycling rates of plastic products other than drink bottles. Drink bottles have already achieved high recycling rates compared to other countries. CLOMA's 2050 goal is to have 100% plastic recycling by 2050, and that will have the following stakeholders: municipalities and companies for sorting and collection, consumers who are the generators of plastic waste, brand owners and retailers who survive on the basis of selling plastic-based goods and products, material manufacturers, recyclers of 2 types, material and chemical. So in this loop, which is going to be a virtuous loop, consumers are expected to use biodegradable plastics, composting into fertilizer and biogas. Material producers are supposed to use and develop biomass plastics. Recyclers, both material and chemical have to function in the area of material recycling and develop paper and cellulose materials. Recyclers of chemicals in particular will lead to chemical materials and chemical recycling, which will have other uses. And material recyclers will focus on paper and cellulose materials. Municipalities and companies will be engaged in sorting and collection, leading to energy recovery and incineration and landfill to the minimal or zero extent. This is a virtuous plastic recycling effort that has been launched under METI's initiative. METI is also promoting Japan's water business at an international level. In the global water business market, Japanese companies are making their presence felt by pushing their technological advantages and know-how. In terms of sales, Japan's Kubota Corporation and Kurita Water Industries and Toray Industries have a strong presence globally. They are addressing the demand for clean water, which is increasing the growth of public awareness of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs, as we know. Ways of promoting Japan's infrastructure systems overseas has been discussed by the ministerial agencies of the government, and they have laid out goals for the next 5-year period. The key goals are to achieve economic growth through carbon neutrality and digital transformation, contribute to achieving the SDGs in partner countries, and realize free and open India-Pacific region. If Japan doesn't do something on robots, it must be surprising. Therefore, it is not surprising that METI is also focused on robotics. Robots are already becoming a common affair in Japan, addressing the labor shortages that stem from Japan's low birth rate and aging population. A newly created standard for these robots was first developed under the revised Standardization Act. The safety requirements of customer service robots themselves are already stipulated under international standards. We have seen in an earlier lecture that standardization promotes industrial expansion, industrial rejuvenation. From Bluetooth to USB cable standards, these have improved the way an industry grows and the way the consumer is benefited. Similarly, in respect of robots, industrial standards are going to benefit development of the field. These newly developed standards require business operators offering different services with robots to establish risk reduction measures. Robots are used not only in public but also are the direct recipients of their services, and in many third parties would be subject to risk if robots do not operate properly. So standardization of robotics in Japan is going to have a significant snowball effect. Industry is never of the most modern era across the sectors. There are expected to be leads and lags of how industries develop, and Japan particularly is famous for not discarding machine tools but instead upgrading the machine tools from time to time. So again, it is therefore not surprising that Japan has a fair proportion of oil refineries and petrochemical plants which are of some vintage, and they operate efficiently by the current standards. However, Japan has taken up a policy initiative to incorporate digital in those petrochemical plants so that cutting-edge technology is available to address their maintenance needs. Nippon Oil and Energy's Mizushima refinery has started using a system that utilizes AI to detect anomalies in boilers. It collects time series data from many sensors installed on equipment and identifies any situation that is abnormal in relation to normal sensor information. The industry, particularly in Japan, is moving away from prescriptive maintenance to real-time maintenance prognosis. That is, instead of saying that this plant has to be audited every 3 months, preventive maintenance has to take place every 2 months, and urgent maintenance has to be done in the case of any trouble. From that kind of paradigm, Japan is moving into a real-time sensor-based equipment and plant monitoring, and thereby throwing up the need for maintenance as and when such a need is proactively sensed by the sensors. So a plant equipment and inspection service is also being conceived using drones. The government is pushing for digital technology. In its growth strategy plan, the government has added plant and infrastructure management as areas of focus for its policy to promote Internet of Things technology. And also, METI is trying to bring the science fiction to everyday reality. There is a company in Tokyo's Minato ward which is working on developing microsatellites, and it would like to develop artificial shooting stars. The particles burn up when they enter the atmosphere, emitting light that resembles shooting stars. Many of these science technologies may not have an immediate impact, and one may question the need for these kinds of things. But as with several developments in the space technology so far, these advanced developments actually have a spin-off impact on the civilian life. Spacewalker Inc. announced that it would start a manned space journey project, and it is collaborating with some of the leading educational institutions and industrial corporations to develop spaceplane rocket for space travel, aiming for a manned flight in 2027. Space debris such as used rocket and satellite wreckage is scattered in outer space, and that has hampered space development. A startup has been launched in Japan called Astroscale Private Limited to develop space debris removal services. It is really a thing of futurism. The company plans to launch the satellite that performs debris removal. At a time when nations are struggling to remove the debris on ground, Japan is trying to remove the debris in the space. You would have seen through these lecture slides that Japan, through its public policy, is contemplating a leapfrogging of technology as well as industrial development into the far future. It is not content with just incremental innovations or even disruptive innovations as we understand today. It is really looking at transformative innovations which take the company that is spearheading the country and also becoming a role model into a new era of public policy driven transformation. We can also look at technology in terms of social entrepreneurship. There are 5 ways in which social entrepreneurs use technology to increase their impact. Technology can empower social entrepreneurship initiatives by democratizing access to information, creating business value, and enabling new capabilities, although not every technology initiative succeeds. A recent social innovation mapping report by the Intel Foundation and Ashoka examines the best practices of entrepreneurs who successfully use information and communication technology to create social impact. This takes 5 hues. First, they move beyond digital literacy. Teaching someone about technology without hands-on experience in real-life situations doesn't guarantee long-term success. Inculcating a sense of self-sufficiency, employability, and the opportunity to use technology to solve social challenges goes a long way towards creating digital citizenship. Second, they incorporate deep stakeholder involvement. That is, the policy and execution must be inclusive, creating the communities and societies with this initiative. They alter perceptions of the marginalized. Social entrepreneurs are altering perceptions of broader society and the way marginalized persons who are not well represented in ICT perceive their potential by demonstrating their ability to succeed. They also keep social entrepreneurship decentralized. Creating community networks where knowledge is easily shared fosters a great ability to act and therefore succeed in local health, prosperity, and education initiatives. One of the biggest social entrepreneurship initiatives which I participated was the BYST, Bharat Yuva Shakti Trust, that was organized in collaboration with CII. We acted as mentors for indigent people, and that could be anything. A project to cook and popularize idlis in indigent sections of the society, to creating an online education system. That was the kind of range those social entrepreneurship efforts were having. They also communicate the results. Aggregate data reported by the citizen participants can be used to influence decision makers. These are the 5 ways in which social entrepreneurs can use technology to increase their impact. When you use technology and innovation for social enterprises, the impact will be very high. How do we define social entrepreneurship? Social entrepreneurship is nothing but running a business that drives social innovation rather than being focused only on obtaining financial goals. Business-minded entrepreneurs with a social agenda seize opportunities by creating innovative processes that can help solve major social issues. There are 4 dimensions on which social enterprises can work. 1. Build public and private partnerships. This is one of the most effective ways of diffusing social entrepreneurship. Second, create social enterprises in developing countries. And the problems faced by developing countries, including India, in terms of improving healthcare, education, unemployment, and poverty alleviation, are ideally suited to the mission of social enterprises. Third, work on poverty alleviation directly. 2 important aspects of UN Millennium Goals, economic development and poverty alleviation, can be worked upon by social enterprises. Fourth, address youth unemployment. The more or the numbers of youth employed in social enterprises, the greater will be the impact and the ripple impact on employment. Entrepreneurship will flourish. Social enterprises need to focus on the ways in which youth in developing countries can join the labor force. There have been many successful cases of social entrepreneurship in India. India does need many social entrepreneurs. I have given some examples. It doesn't mean that the ones not stated here are not high achieving social enterprises. Many are there. One is the Study Hall Education Foundation. It has worked with over 900 schools and changed the life of 150,000 girls directly and 270,000 girls indirectly with this social education program. The Pipal Tree, a company that aims to impart formal training to the youth and provides them with reputable jobs in companies across the country, made people feel confident and explore formal employment opportunities. The program Childline aims to provide help in form of healthcare and police assistance, especially to street children. Goons is a social enterprise that collects used clothing from the urban crowd, sorts them, fixes and later distributes it among the poor and the needy. Selco is a company rendering sustainable energy source to rural regions of the country. This project was the first rural solar financing program in India. The rise of social enterprise has been there for the last several years. The release of Deloitte Human Capital Trends 2018, entitled The Rise of the Social Enterprise, summarizes the following. 65% of companies surveyed rate inclusive growth as one of their top 3 goals, eclipsing strategies like growing market share or being the category leader. Citizenship and social impact were rated critical or important by 77% of the respondents, and this topic was rated the least ready issue among the executive surveyed. The need to create 21st century careers, improve the relevance of reward systems, focus on employee well-being, and addressing the issue of longevity in the workforce were all rated as the top 10 issues in the human capital agenda. There are 2 dimensions of a social enterprise. One is the level of collaboration and internal agility. The other is the level of external focus. Based on these 2 dimensions, we can classify social enterprises into 4 quadrants. One which has increased engagement with external actors, one which is a true social enterprise, one which has increased collaboration, internal integration, and one which is just a traditional organization. The traditional organization has a functional siloed operating model focused only on enterprise goals, whereas increased engagement and increased collaboration have either ecosystem external focus or symphonic network of teams operating models as the key drivers. Social enterprise is one where the external focus is on the ecosystem and the symphonic network of teams operating model works inclusively, bringing together everybody in the social enterprise. The horizontal axis, moving from an organization, operates as a functional hierarchy to one that operates as a network of teams. Vertical axis, where each part of the company, sales, marketing, product strategy, engineering, HR, and finance, looked at the impact of external factors and the company's footprint in the external world. That is also important. So the network of teams along with the externally focused ecosystem helps create a true social enterprise. There are 5 tech company social good startups. One is Cycle Land with shared mobility including bikes, e-bikes and e-scooters. We have had Healthy Health, which helps individuals identify and prevent medical risks. Nexus Labs uses cutting-edge technology to help medical students and junior doctors grasp their key concepts better. Up Effect, a crowdfunding and support platform for companies dedicated to improving lives and the planet. Signum Health enables professionals to electronically and remotely diagnose and refer patients to health providers. Social entrepreneurship for people and business is not just focusing on profitability, nor is it distracting or pulling funds from the organization's primary mission. But as social entrepreneurs launch ventures that make money while drastically improving the lives of millions, people are seeing surprising benefits. That's how LifeSpring was built. It is a maternity hospital that provides India's poorest women with affordable, high-quality healthcare. It advocates for-profit social enterprises as the founder believes that business to be an incredible equalizer, and once everyone is an equal, real change can flourish. Even with a nominal fee, social entrepreneurs say that customers receive more equal footing in the eyes of the company, something often missing within a traditional charity model. When the service or product is free, recipients are expected to offer whatever is offered as genuine assistance. However, when the service or product is charged even nominally, there would be having a leverage to ask for a change, and that enables higher standards and higher expectations. This is a different kind of social philosophy that has been brought up by LifeSpring in the healthcare situation. The transition from charity recipients to paying clients makes all of the difference. Empowered to ask for what they need, they will finally get the social services and the dignity that they have been seeking. This is a different philosophy, as I said, in social entrepreneurship. Social entrepreneurs in startup communities have happened during the pandemic. Venture capitalists also had an important role in promoting this social entrepreneurship. A new breed of cloud management platform vendors is emerging to help companies pursue cloud transformation, reduce IT spend, and mitigate cybersecurity threats. Unprecedented crisis of COVID has catalyzed the development and use of tools such as conversational AI bots by state unemployment agencies. The healthcare industry has been embracing the use of AI to predict unplanned hospital admissions and screen patients during the pandemic. Retailers and restaurants have been leading the economic recovery, utilizing innovative last-mile solutions for contactless delivery and curbside pickup and streamlining delivery operations. A whole new breed of entrepreneurs and entrepreneurial companies swung into action to manufacture PPEs, masks, sanitizers, and to repurpose drugs for COVID-19. This is also social entrepreneurship. There are many big technology startup opportunities in the 2020s, all of which can be supported by public policy even more. Healthcare will have the best opportunity for remote medicine, telemedicine, and better service, taking the healthcare to the doorsteps of the indigent population. While digital learning has taken off during the COVID times, the digital divide is the one constraint which needs to be bridged. Eventually, developing a hybrid model wherein people have the community participation in terms of education and also the convenience of digital learning is the one which we could pursue. Private sector educational institutions must have a social enterprise motive to make education not just for the luxury sections of the population but also accessible by even the poorest of poor. NPTEL is doing Eamon surveys for higher education in terms of completely free of charge course materials available over structured 4-week, 8-week or 12-week programs. This being a 12-week program delivering science and technology concepts and constructs for the benefit of everybody. As we know, strategy and technology have to be combined to make technology and science the most effective and most impactful factors of our economic growth. Retail is also having this startup opportunity. Given the mandatory lockdowns or curfew restrictions, we need to have changes to both the brick and mortar retail as well as the online e-commerce retail. These are all opportunities that are now available. 27% of the small businesses that remained open during the pandemic reported an increase in contactless payments. Fintech will play a great role in moderating the impact of crisis and also diffusing economic development. There will be more than shadow banks as economic development gets democratized in our country. We also have to look at ESG. ESG means environmental, social and governance factors. These factors are being used extensively by funds to evaluate companies and by countries to evaluate how advanced they are with sustainability. Once enough data has been acquired on these three metrics, they can be integrated into the investment process when deciding what equities or bonds to buy and what companies of ESG certification that the funds needed to invest. Climate change is one of the most important factors of environmental friendliness. We need to have net carbon neutrality as a goal to occur between 2030 and 2050, depending upon the nature of the industry, the nature of the business, and the resources that are being deployed. Social responsibility must include human rights, labor standards in the supply chain, any exposure to illegal child labor, and more routine issues such as adherence to workplace health and safety. Governance refers to a set of rules or principles defining rights, responsibilities, and expectations between different stakeholders in the governance of corporations. A well-defined corporate governance structure can be used to balance or align interests between stakeholders and can work as a tool to support a company's long-term strategy. There are several ways in which companies are striving to make this happen. Constitution of ESG committees at the board level, having chief sustainability officers at the executive leadership level, and having mentoring programs on environment, safety and health are some of the methodologies by which ESG can be institutionalized in companies. And when ESG gets institutionalized, when corporate social responsibility takes big stage, then there would be an impact on the society. Ashok Leyland has the Road to School program by which several thousands of students benefited in terms of literacy. It also has a Jal Jeevan program by which communities needing safe drinking water are provided several thousands of liters of water on a regular basis. These are all the initiatives that can help change the tenor texture of a community from being indigent to being self-reliant. Tata Trusts have been playing a great role. They began in 1892 with Jamsetji Tata, the pioneer, visionary and founder of the Tata Group. There are now 5 trusts: Sir Ratan Tata Trust, Namajbai Ratan Tata Trust, Tata Education and Development Trust, Bhai Hirabai Jain Tata Navashri Charitable Institution, and Namajbai Ratan Tata Trust. All of these trusts work together as well as individually to make several social initiatives and social enterprises, educational enterprises possible. The work of Tata Trust spans healthcare and nutrition, education, livelihood, migration and urban habitat, social justice and inclusion, disaster relief and rehabilitation. If India's top companies and top conglomerates take up corporate social responsibility through this trust mechanism in a focused and dedicated manner, the impact on India's social development would be enormous. So government policy should facilitate and help these trusts achieve social enterprise at the grassroots level. Government, as I have deliberated in the first part of my lecture, can promote technological innovation because that is the primary driver of economic growth and generation of wealth. Simultaneously, governments can support social entrepreneurship so that the benefits of big corporations are made available in a diffused manner to the ground level community requirements all across the country. Together, social technology could power India's development as the third largest economic power sooner than later. Thank you.